Hello, you're listening to Storytelling Saga, the podcast that shares stories. I'm your host, Allie, and in honor of the 150th episode this week, I am discussing my all-time favorite anime, Fruits Basket, based on the popular manga written and illustrated by Natsuki Takaya. The manga consists of 23 volumes, and it was originally published from 1998 to 2006 in a shoujo manga magazine in Japan called Hana to Yume, and it consists of 136 chapters. And I fell in love with this manga when I was 13. It was back in 2004. My cousins introduced it to me, and they had also, this was the second manga the second manga series I had started reading. The first was Tokyo Mew Mew, which they also introduced me to. That one, I believe, is only 7 volumes, and then I think there was a bonus volume, but I liked that one. But then this one, like when they introduced me to this one, I just full on fell in love. I remember they had the 2 volumes at the time. It was volume 1 with Toru on the cover, volume 2 with Yuki on the cover, and then volume 3 with Kyo on the cover. My Kyo Soma. Wait, I've got a lot to say about Kyo Soma. Boy, I'm already like giddy. I'm in love with Kyo Soma. Anyway, so I fell in love with the characters and the writing and the artwork. And that same year is when I purchased the DVDs, the original anime, which actually premiered back in 2001. So 20 years this year, which is crazy too. So the original anime is 26 episodes, but it's very different from the manga in terms of content and even certain character qualities. A lot is changed, a lot is omitted. The reason being is because at the time, that was when the manga was still being published, so they didn't know where the story was going. And Natsuki Takaya clashed with the director. She wasn't happy with the way that anime had turned out. So then years later, her publisher asked her how she wanted to celebrate the upcoming anniversary of Fruits Basket, and she said, I want to be able to watch it the way it was intended and then cry. And when it was announced that Fruits Basket was returning with a whole new anime to tell the complete story of the manga, I found out about it actually from my friend who tweeted about it, and she was saying how, oh, the new Fruits Basket is so good, so much nostalgia. And I just froze and immediately tweeted her, wait, what? There's a new Fruits Basket? She was like, yeah, it's going to be every week. It's simulcast with Funimation and Crunchyroll. And I was so excited. I looked it up, saw the trailer for it, and was immediately taken by the art style, and then recognizing certain scenes from the manga that I read years ago. And then I told my sister, and then I told her we had to watch it. And then within the span of all that, it was just like 20 minutes of finding out about it, looking it up, finding the episode and watching it. And oh my God. So it's amazing that after all these years that we finally got this new version of the anime telling the entire manga story. And yes, there are still some things omitted, but oh my God. Because at the time with the original anime, I loved it, but I knew that it wasn't, like, I was disappointed with certain things that were omitted early on in the original series. And that said, though, I got so much use out of those DVDs, which I still own, but I don't have a DVD player currently, so, but I do have them. But I remember watching them, it was in the summer, and I binged them in 2 days, the entire series. So the first 2 DVDs with like 6 episodes apiece, and then the second 2 with 7 episodes apiece. And I remember watching them with my sister, and she was 8 at the time, so a little too young, but what are you gonna do? And I was in love with it. I was in love with Kyo Soma in particular. My reaction to hearing Kyo, voiced by Jerry Jewell, was, I can only describe as a combination between a scream, squeal, and laugh. And again, I was 13 at the time, so, you know, a full-on fangirl reaction to it, because he was my favorite character right from the very start of reading the manga. And then, I kid you not, so fast forward 15 years later when the new anime was announced and we watched the new episode together, my sister and I. And at first we were confused a little bit. We didn't quite recognize, wait, is that the same voice actors? We weren't entirely sure because it had been years since we had watched the original. And we thought, well, they kind of sound similar, not too sure. And then we said, let's jump ahead to when Kyo is introduced in the episode because we'll know instantly. She loves Kyo also. So we did that. And then, I kid you not, I had the exact same visceral reaction. I can't replicate it now, but it's just one of those involuntary things. I literally had the same reaction, just kind of a burst of fangirling joy. I can't describe it any other way. And honestly, that's my favorite character introduction in any show, movie, book, anything at all. It's such an amazing character entrance. You just see a glimmer of his smile when he's standing in the tree. Then when he crashes through the ceiling. And then that iconic yo. That's what got me. The yo. Amazing. Oh my god. And I just gotta go ahead and play the clip. So here first is the original anime.
Yo, time to pay the piper, rat boy. I'm here to collect.
Funny, I would have thought he'd send somebody bigger.
That's right, you better get your tough talk out of the way while you can, cause I'm about to wipe that stupid little smirk right off your face!
Oh, wait, stop, don't fight,
Yuki, what were all those crashing sounds I just heard? Kyo's not here, is he?
I'm so sorry, are you alright? I turned him into a cat! I'm so sorry! I don't know how it happened, but we're going to help you, okay? Hurry, we need to get him to a doctor right away!
Miss Honda, Toru.
This must all be a dream. Everybody's turning into animals.
Amazing, I know. So now here is the same scene from the new anime, the first episode.
Yo, are you ready for a beating, rat boy? Let's do this.
Honestly, why don't you just accept it already? You're too weak to take me.
Think so, huh? Well, too bad for you, I'm not the same fighter I was before! I'll show you!
Wait! I'm sure we can settle this without...
Hey, Yuki, was that Kyo's voice I heard?
I'm so sorry, are you okay?
Yeah, that's him.
He was a boy,
Stupid jerk.
and now he's a cat. I landed on him wrong and somehow turned him into a cat,
Oh,
I guess.
this is awkward.
This is all my fault.
Okay,
Get him
so
to the
here's the
doctor, quick.
thing.
We have to hurry!
Honda.
Now here's the thing. As I told you, the original anime, that was my all-time favorite anime for years and years until this new version came along. And as a 13-year-old watching it, even though there were certain things omitted, as I said, that I wished were included, I, for the most part, absolutely loved it. I loved the voice acting, I loved the artwork, I loved everything about it. But when I rewatched the original anime with my sister, so what we did was when the first season was airing, we would watch the new episode and then we would go back and rewatch the original and just kind of compare and just see the differences and everything. So that was a lot of fun to do, since then again it was only 26 episodes and that was it. So at the time, as a 13-year-old, to me it was flawless. But then when I rewatched it all these years later, a few things jumped out at me. The main thing that jumped out at me with the original is that there's so much goddamn filler. I thought, wow, this is kind of ridiculous. All this weird, over-the-top, stupid fucking filler that's in here. And the reason being is because they didn't know where the manga was going. And the main things that they omitted early on, I might as well just mention, the thing with the hats, the whole story with the hat, with Yuki and Kyo, that whole thing. Also, they omitted the scene when after they visit Toru's mother's grave, and then afterwards when Toru is taking a nap and then Kyo sees her, like he just sits next to her and then he whispers, "I'm sorry." I was so disappointed when that wasn't included in the original. However, in my opinion, as much as I absolutely love the new anime, it's better in every sense to me. And the production value, the art style, the voice acting has improved too, with most of the original voice cast in the English dub, which is amazing. Props to Laura Bailey, of course, as Toru Honda, Jerry Jewell as Kyo Soma, Eric Vale as Yuki Soma, John Bergmeyer as Shigure Soma, etc., etc. That being said, in my opinion, there's one way the new anime pales in comparison to the original, and you may have noticed it with those two clips, and that is, to me, the music. The music in the original is second to none. I actually even had the soundtrack, and you may have noticed the piano. I mean, I hope you noticed the piano music at the beginning of this episode. And if you're a huge fan of Fruits Basket like me, which I hope you are, so if not, check out the series on Hulu or on Funimation or Crunchyroll. But you obviously must have recognized the opening song that I played, which was the original opening theme song for Fruits Basket, sung by Ritsuko Osakase, rest in peace. It's just so beautiful, the lyrics, and obviously, as I would watch the English dub, but I did watch the original Japanese back in the day as well, and I did watch the new one too, because I was curious to hear, because it was all new voices. They had a whole new voice cast for the original Japanese, but I'm glad that they got a lot of the original voice actors for the English dub, because it just wouldn't have been the same with new voices. Oh my god. But anyway, the music to me in the original is far superior. For Fruits Basket, such a beautiful song, and also the closing theme song, Small Prayer. And as I said, I had the soundtrack, and there's just a few songs I want to point out from the original, one of which is called I'm Drummer. That's what I call the stirring shit up music. It's just like, something's going down, someone's like talking nonsense, and then often like Kyo, like his cat ears would spring up and he would just like get pissed. So that's a great one. And another one I love is Going My Own Way. My sister and I simply referred to that one as the Momiji music because it was just his signature theme, so we loved that one. And then one other one I want to point out is Fruits Basket in Waltz. All of these just bring a smile to my face, and that one in particular, of course, was the song that would play as a preview for the next episode. And the one that, for whatever reason, I just always remember is the one with Kyo, like with the chocolate, and he's like, "Oh, I just gotta eat it, so I'll eat it," Of course. But goodness, why am I such a fangirl for Kyo? I don't know. It's just weird that I go back into that mindset with it. It's just crazy, but what are you going to do? So pardon me. But anyway, so I loved the original theme song though, and I hope you enjoyed. That was me playing the piano. I hope you enjoyed that. I practiced it a lot. It was still kind of, I did my best, but what are you going to do? So that was me playing the original theme song in the beginning of the episode. I never get tired of that original theme song. Oh my god. That said though, the new one has some great theme songs too. In particular, I love the one for season 3, the last one, and the visuals of that are beautiful, or fucking beautiful. I was about to say, fuck it, fucking beautiful. I stand by that. And I also loved the season 2 part B, that theme song, the I'm home, the you're my home, whatever, that one. That's beautiful too. And with Fruits Basket, it's so emotionally heavy. Even the original version, I remember crying, like having a pillow, watching it like on the ground, lying on a pillow, and then like the pillow would be all wet with my tears afterward. Oh my god. I just remember that with certain episodes, in particular the Hattori episode. I love Hattori. He is my personal spirit animal in terms of who I feel I relate to the most, Hattori. Oh man, I love him too. And I would also cry a lot at the episode when they visit Toru's mother's grave, and then afterward the whole scene with Toru and Momiji talking about how they want to always keep their memories, and then they're crying and it's beautiful. Also, toward the end of the original anime I'm still talking about, with the part with Kyo and Kazuma, and when he says, someday I'm gonna make you proud to be like, to say that you're my dad, or that I'm your son, something like that. That always got me too. Also, the thing with Momiji when his father hugs him and says, Papa will love you twice as hard to make up for Mama's love. Oh my god, that destroyed me. And like with this anime, my friend also in middle school, we absolutely loved it. She was such a big fan too. I remember introducing her to the manga, and she also loved Kyo. She also really loved Ayami. Man, apologies. I'm still in my brain when I'm thinking of the original. I think of the original pronunciations, because in the new one too, they go with the proper pronunciation. So instead of Toru Honda, it's Toru Honda, and it's Shigure, not Shigore, and everything pronounced correctly in Japanese, the way they actually pronounce it. So anyway though, with the original, I just have so many memories with the original one. My cousin and I too, since they were the ones that introduced it to me, but my cousin and I, who were the same age, we would buy each other the same manga volumes for Christmas and then trade it with each other. So like that was our gifts to each other at Christmas time. We'd each buy each other the exact same volume, whichever was the most recent volume available. And we would trade, exchange it, because, we were interesting like that. And she had also bought me a Kyo t-shirt, which I don't think I have anymore, sadly. I outgrew it. But it was a black t-shirt, had a picture of Kyo as a cat with like an anger mark on his forehead, and it just says, I heart Kyo. So that was an amazing t-shirt. I also had a black and white bracelet that I believe I bought at Claire's, and my sister had one too. And because in the original, his bracelet is black and white, but as we know in the manga, and then again true to the new anime, in keeping in tone with the manga, that the bracelet is actually like beige and red, really, because it's dried animal bone and blood. So I had that bracelet though, black and white beaded bracelet, that I of course wore on my left wrist. And I remember my friend, we also loved, in the original, Hatsuharu, but in the actual pronunciation, Hatsuharu, we loved Haru. Like, I told my sister I was in love with Kyo, I was in lust with Haru. So, too funny. But I remember at one point in gym class, my friend saying, oh, Allie, just picture, because we were playing, I think, kickball, not dodgeball. We were playing kickball, or maybe it was softball, whatever. She said, picture like when you hit the ball, you're just going to run to Haru. You're just going to see his face, like, to help me out there. Too funny in gym class. Oh my God. I also remember the two of us writing a genuinely terrible fanfic together. When I say terrible, I mean it had no plot whatsoever. It was also written in script format. It had no plot, and for whatever reason we made Toru a bad cook in it, so already it was just like not even in line with the actual characters. But I remember that. It's too funny, oh my god. I also remember us, my friend and I, ranking the men from cute to hot. Obviously Momiji the cutest. I believe hottest we said was Kyo, and then maybe actually Haru. Aya was high on the list also, and Hattori. So this is what 13-year-old girls do. We're just like in love with hot anime boys. And when the original anime was over, because it didn't tell the full story, it ended after Toru sees Kyo in his true form. And also obviously a big glaring issue with the original is that Akito is still a male, where in fact she's actually female, because that was before it was revealed in the story. So they had Akito voiced by a male voice actor, even though it's revealed later on that she is dressed and meant to behave like a male, even though she's actually a female. That's a big part of her character. I remember finding that out on a forum or something before I actually read it and just being so shell-shocked by that. Just, wow, what a twist. And that's the thing too. I never actually had read the entire manga. I came to a point where eventually, you kind of outgrow things and move on to other things. So unfortunately for me, that happened with Fruits Basket. It happened by high school, I was kind of, moving on from Fruits Basket by then. I still would buy the manga volumes, but then it came to a point where I just stopped. And then for years, I just had an incomplete collection, but then I finally purchased the rest of them a few years ago when the new anime started up, actually. My sister said, "Oh, you should just buy the rest." I was like, "You're right, I should. I'm going to." And I bought the remaining few that I didn't have of the original. And that said, the main thing I cared about, even as a 13-year-old in all these years, was just, do Kyo and Toru end up together? That was the main thing I wanted to know. So I ended up just finding info about what happens in the last few chapters and everything. Obviously, I'm very happy with how the story ends up, how it concludes. But with as much of the romance and everything, obviously this is such a compelling story with the life lessons you can learn. And even as a 13-year-old, I knew the depth of the characters and their heart-wrenching backstories and just the important things that in particular you learn from Toru Honda, our main character, and how she's the embodiment of empathy. She has no malice whatsoever. She's so genuinely kind-hearted and sweet. And to me, even watching the original and reading the manga, I always interpret it as each of them kind of loves Toru, whether they love her romantically, whether platonically, whether sisterly. They all, as in all of the cursed Somas in particular too, they all have a moment where they love Toru in their own way. So that's just so truly beautiful. But in the original anime, there are always certain lessons that stuck with me. For instance, early on, that scene when Toru is helping Yuki with the strawberry patch, like with the secret base, that whole thing with his garden. And then she says that whole beautiful monologue about how kindness is something we must be taught. Kindness has to be nurtured, and that we are born wanting, we want attention, we want food, whatever it may be. So that kindness is learned, and that's a beautiful thing. I always also loved the whole thing about when Kyoko tells Toru, a young Toru, about how she remembers what it's like to be a kid, and that simple empathy, that if you can remember what it's like, what it feels like to be a kid or to be a teenager, that you can then relate to someone in that way and empathize with them. And I also loved the whole thing with Toru and Kyo, the whole scene when she talks about the plum on the back, because as we know, the whole thing with Yuki and Kyo's rivalry, that it stems from them genuinely envying each other. And so then Toru gives the metaphor of, oh, maybe it's because you see the plum on his back, but you don't notice the beautiful plum on your back, and using that analogy of the plum with the onigiris, with the rice balls. And then it's so cute when he blushes and he just says, hey, you've got a plum too, but it's a really big, it's like a really tiny plum. It's so cute. Also, the whole thing with the foolish traveler, the idiotic traveler, whatever, that whole story, because again, it's showing that he was too kind, and then he ended up with just ahead. That whole thing. I remember telling my friend, oh, this story is both funny and heartbreaking. And then she said, like, when she finally read it, she said, oh my God, Allie, you were right. It's hilarious yet so tragic, or whatever. And of course, the title itself, Fruits Basket, being left out, how we learn with Toru in her childhood, that when they played the game Fruits Basket, which I did play that game too when I was younger, so I was excited too, understanding already the game Fruits Basket, although we played it differently. In the anime, and I guess in Japan it's played differently, where you're assigned a different fruit, and then you're called one by one and you get to join in on the fun. So then with Toru, they call her Rice Ball, and then they just one by one they call out all the other fruits, and then saying how a rice ball doesn't belong in a fruits basket. So that whole theme of belonging and accepting, and it's just so absolutely beautiful, and how she comes to realize she belongs with the Soma family as an outsider looking in, and with their tragic, terrible curse that afflicts the 13 of them in the family. But with the game, for me though, we played it as, it was like apple, pear, cherries, grapes, apple, pear, and then, okay, all the apples, and you run, like, get a new seed. It was kind of like musical chairs. Whoever ended up in the middle would have to pick out a new fruit. We played it like that. But anyway, that's just such a beautiful thing too, that whole metaphor. And then going into the new anime, it was amazing kind of reliving all of these points in the story with now all these years later as an adult rewatching it, and the things that still resonate and everything, because the whole thing with the Soma family curse, being so used to it now, being a fan of this series for all these years, it's hard to take a step back and really kind of analyze it and realize how much of even though you know the struggle with the characters, but realize how bizarre it is and how so specific it is that when they are hugged by the opposite sex, they turn into an animal from one of the 12 zodiac members plus the cat, the Chinese zodiac. Also when they're in distress. And it's just so bizarre that that's like the terms of the curse, and this hindrance on the entire family, really, and even not even just the cursed zodiac members, but everyone in the family, and how it afflicts them, and how if someone finds out, they have to erase their memory, and Hatori's the one who does it. So even though this is very much a slice of life anime with romance, with drama, with bits of comedy, of course, too, but also this supernatural element to it as well, it really is tragic seeing how, in particular, that with each cursed zodiac member, how they are affected personally by the curse, how some of them are so beating themselves up and so withdrawn and inside their own emotion in terms of feeling like a burden and feeling worthless. So a lot of it too is about healing their emotional wounds and scars and acceptance of themselves and others. And in particular with the cursed zodiac members, how we see in connection with their parents, how, as Momiji says it early on, that either they are protective of them or they just reject them completely. And for the most part, you see really shitty parents in this anime. It makes you think, why? Like this terrible cycle of abuse, but this is just how it is, sadly. We see it with Kyo's parents, we see it with Yuki's parents, we see it with Momiji's mother in particular. And then you see really great, wonderful parents, namely, of course, Kyoko Honda, who tragically passes away before the events of the manga even begin, so we only ever see her in flashbacks. And it's easy to me, too, to forget how truly resilient Toru is and the strength of her character, that she's living with this grief of having lost her father when she was so young, and then her mother who was her best friend. And that at the start of the manga, when she's introduced, she just walks out into the bright, beautiful sunshine, living in a tent, though, because she doesn't want to be a burden to her grandfather while the house is being renovated. And then so throughout the course of it, really, her growth is standing up for herself and realizing what she wants, that it's okay to be selfish. It's like you're not a burden, and just knowing what you want. And a big part of that is with Kyo in helping her realize that. So that's why truly Kyo and Toru are such an amazing pair, because we see how the both of them need one another. The both of them grow thanks to one another, individually and together. How Toru right away when she's still getting to know Kyo. That whole scene when she talks about how she's always been a fan of the Year of the Cat, that she wanted to be the Year of the Cat when she was little. And I love that whole scene when, it's in one of the first few episodes, like when she accidentally smacks him thinking he's a pervert in the woods, and then he just like wants to apologize for the day before when he had crashed through the ceiling. And it's just so sweet and adorable. And really, you can think of it as the start of their love story. And here is the clip of that scene from the new anime.
Don't tell me. Is this some creepy forest pervert? Go away! Oh no! Sorry, I was just doing practice swings. Lucky running into you out here. Are you going for a walk?
Cut it out. So you hit me, whatever. Just drop it.
Okay. Kyo.
Yeah, what?
I was just saying your name.
Well, it sounded like you were calling me.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. You can say my name without needing something. And I know you don't mean to cause any problems for us. And if I piss you off, you can go ahead and hit me. I don't care.
Am I reading this wrong? Or is he trying to apologize? Is that why he's out here? To find me? Hey, Kyo. I'm sorry I hurt you. But the honest truth is, I thought you were a pervert. That's why I swung my bag at you.
Me? A pervert?
I actually really like you. I have always loved the Zodiac Cat. I'm serious. I even wanted to be born the Year of the Cat. I'm confusing you. What I mean is, I want us to be friends.
What'll you do if she does exist? A girl who says she loves you.
Nothing's good about the Year of the Cat, okay?
I think I might be starting to understand him just a little bit. He can be awkward sometimes, yes, but I think he has a gentle heart. He knows what it feels like to be sorry, and he's an honest person.
That's one of my favorite scenes from the early episodes because it's just so adorable. And I remember in the original anime, Kyo says something like, "What are you, some kind of Year of the Cat fan club or something? Come on, let's go home." Too adorable. And I also like the scene that directly follows that one, so I'll go ahead and play that clip as well.
Why, Kyo, you lecherous little deviant.
What gives you the right to call me that?
You know, Toro, he personally offered to walk you back from work so you'd get home safe and sound.
That was a one-time thing. It won't happen again.
Okay, but I'm glad you're here. It's really nice to see you eating a proper meal with us. So how is it? Up to your standards?
What do you want?
Nothing.
You were looking at me.
You were in front of me.
Sure, like you'd give me that look for no reason.
Is the food that bad?
It is!
Then I'll try harder next time.
I mean, no.
As you can see, Mom, we patched things up. And I have a feeling the days ahead will be fun.
Shigure is just, oh my god, he really loves getting under Kyo's skin. And to be fair, Kyo is very easy to rile up. And it's so funny because these early episodes in particular, Kyo is extremely hot-tempered. Just every little thing sets him off. In the original anime, she asks, "Do you like the food?" And he screams, "No, I don't." And of course he doesn't really mean that. He just needs to learn how to not snap at people and really grow as a person. Really, a lot of the comedy in Fruits Basket comes from boisterous characters with the quieter characters. In particular, Yuki. So Yuki versus Kyo. Yuki even versus his brother, Ayame. I keep like wanting to say Ayami, but Ayame, and it's just too funny. Oh my goodness. But I will say the original anime in that sense too, it is funnier generally too, because again, it misses a lot of the subtext of more important things in the manga. And again, since there's so much filler in the original version of the anime, I mean, there's that whole episode where Toru's friends, Arisa Uotani and Saki Hanajima, come over for a sleepover, and then the whole episode is them just trying to make sure they don't see them when they transform. So they drag that out for a whole episode. Similarly with Kyo, with his true form, they drag that out for 3 episodes in the original one, whereas it's just a single episode in the new version. So they're much more succinct, rightfully so, because there's a lot of characters in this series, obviously, with the Somas themselves, with each of these cursed Zodiac members, but then also with the high school students, and then you have the student council members, all of those characters, so there's all of that. But with the original one, though, before I move on from that, the one episode I would show friends who had never seen Fruits Basket before was the episode when they start their new term in high school, and it's Momiji and Hataharu's first day as well. And I remember watching it at the time with another friend of mine, and you know the scene when Haru reveals his true hair, like it's like that's not his real hair color, and you know that whole scene. And then I remember my friend being like, wait, what did he do? He showed his leg hair? And I had to be like, no, he showed his pubes, you know, his pubic hair. But in the new version, there are 2 specific moments that genuinely make me there's like plenty of funny side moments, even throughout the manga as well. Just little quips from Yuki, for example, just his little sarcastic quips, which are funny. But in particular, one moment made my sister and I burst out laughing in the episode when Toru goes back to live with her grandfather and they treat her horribly, her family disgusting. And I really liked the new interpretation of it because we see it from Kyo and Yuki's perspective when they're listening in and we see them reacting to it. That was just very interesting. But when they are walking around trying to find the house, and then just the exchange between Yuki and Kyo is just so hilarious.
There's no answer.
Maybe they can't hear that wussy knock of yours. My turn. Excuse me!
Brilliant logic there. Gets me every time. And the other hilarious sequence to me, I mentioned it earlier when I discussed Cinderella, the whole Cinderella-ish play that they do because all the hilarious miscastings. But then it gets serious, though, at one point when Toru says how she doesn't want him to be locked up. Because that's really a big part of Toru's character arc, that she starts out very innocent and naive, and through the help of Kyo in particular, telling her that she needs to stand up for herself, it's okay to be selfish sometimes.
Being selfish sometimes. It's no big deal. I wouldn't like it if somebody was selfish every single day. But that isn't the way you are. You can be selfish every once in a while. I figure you deserve that much at least. So next time, just ask.
It's okay to be selfish. That's something we all deserve.
What is it? What's wrong? Why are you crying?
I want to go home. Even if it is selfish, that's what I want. To be with all of you.
Then come on, let's go home.
But Q, all of my stuff.
Let's go.
Okay, next is the rice ball!
So Toru, throughout the course of the anime, learns to stand up for herself more and realizes that what she wants is him. So in seeing her emotional maturity as we get deeper into the anime, when we get to then the final season, really, with the last few episodes in particular, how Toru's motivation becomes that she wants to break the curse, in particular because she wants to protect Kyo and save Kyo because she's in love with him. And so that's a really satisfying thing, watching this all these years later now, finally seeing it brought to life in the anime from the manga, because Watching the original, a frustrating thing to me about it was how it's so one-sided, that Kyo is so obviously in love with her, and Toru in her innocence just does not have a clue, and there's really no sense at all that I guess she blushes and stuff, she gets flustered, but there's no sense at all at that point that she's in love with him. And though we do find out, though, later on that she realized she was in love with him when she ran after him when he was in his true form, that she was afraid, but she didn't want him to leave because she needs him, she loves him. So that's a satisfying thing, because watching it originally, to me, it was so obvious, and then like trying to just hold on to any sense of, oh, does she love him too? Because in the original too, it's very much a love triangle with Kyo, Toru, Yuki, where it seems like Yuki's in love with her as well. And really throughout the manga too, it seems like that, until he realizes then that to him, he sees her as a motherly figure. And then of course he falls in love with Machi, so their little love story is sweet too. With Yuki, he's a complex character to me because there's so much to empathize with him about him. He goes through so much emotional trauma that he needs healing, like to accept himself, to really kind of overcome it. His childhood trauma with Akito in particular. Really all of the abuse that Akito afflicts on so many of the cursed Soma members. And I don't want to tread too much down this path, but I mean, you know, all the abuse she does, the physical and emotional abuse. I don't need to go through any of that really, because, you know, it's just horrible. But God, because she's so much, for the most part, a villain throughout this anime and the manga. But then we see, though, how she herself is struggling, because with her, she's afraid of people leaving. So then she acts out by then using violence and using emotional manipulation. And again, it doesn't make it right, but seeing why she is the way she is, and it's absolutely horrible. So for me now, with the new anime, I did gain much of a deeper appreciation and understanding of characters that I was not necessarily a fan of at all watching it with the original anime, watching it as a young teen. For example, I was never really a fan of Kagura at all, or Kagura in the original, but Kagura, because she's just so, it's so cringy, all that stuff with her forced, unrequited love for Kyo. But we do see her growth too, and then really her character arc ends when she professes her love to him and confesses that she first pitied him, but then truly fell in love with him. And then he says how he could never love her, but he just allows her to cry, and that's just kind of the end of her arc. So with all these characters, obviously some of them kind of have shorter arcs. Ritsu is a character my sister and I both love too. Unfortunately, he doesn't have that big of a role in the anime overall, but his arc is interesting too, because with him, he decides to dress up as a woman because that's a security blanket for him, though he identifies as male. And then he falls in love with, which is so sweet too, with Mii, Shigere's editor. That poor woman goes through a lot, dealing with Shigere. Shigere himself, too, how we see that he's kind of this puppet master, really. And even later on, too, when he says how, oh, the curse will be lifted eventually. And then when he tells Toru that whole speech about how the cat is merely there for us to pity and to look at and say, thank goodness we're not him. And then poor Toru, and she's just so heartbroken and really, oh God, really crying then. So again, with her motivation to break the curse. Similarly with Rin then, where Rin and Toru develop a nice friendship, and they have the same goal, to break the curse. In Rin's case, it's because she wants to protect Haru. And Haru, too, is such an amazing character, because to me, in a lot of ways, he is the most emotionally intelligent of anyone in the Soma family. The way he just kind of knows what's really going on underneath the surface, how he's so in tune with Yuki in particular, when he knows to tell Yuki, oh, you know, Honda-san was worried about you, like just things like that. And with Hiro, for example, when he just playfully says to Hiro, it's like, oh, are you in love with Rin? Like, he doesn't really think that. He's just saying that to kind of tease him and just kind of to get him off his back, because Hiro is kind of connected to Rin because he saw the horrible thing that Akito did to Rin, which again, I don't want to just get into all of that stuff, because then it's just, you know, a whole tangent, all of the terrible things Akito has done. But Rin's a really strong, amazing character, too. And Hiro is such a sweetheart, too, because, again, he starts out as such a total brat who is too much of a loudmouth, kind of like a little mini version of Kyo. It's so funny how Hiro and Kisa are kind of a young version of Kyo and Toru, so that's just really adorable too. But Hiro, with his growth of wanting to be a man and kind of realize that he needs to know when to shut the hell up, you know? So he's such a total brat, especially in the original one too, since he was voiced by a young kid in the original. In the new one, they got a woman to voice him, which makes sense, obviously, because with voice changes and everything. And then, so you got him with knowing when to stop talking, basically. And then you have on the other side of that Kisa, who he loves, like who he's in love with. And there's hints of her, like she is kind of slower to realize that she loves him as well, which is, they're so cute though. But with Kisa learning to stand up for herself and speak up more. And so it's just so adorable when like she is at the house and she's like, oh, I just want to say it's really nice to see you to Kyo. And Kyo's just like, oh yeah, it's nice to see you too. Like it took so much for her to do that. And it's just, again, so adorable. My goodness. I do also want to take a moment and talk about Arisa and Hana. Hana is another one of my favorite characters. Outside of the Somas, I would say my favorite characters are Kyo, obviously, Momiji, Hatori, Hatsuharu, and Hana, I would say my top 5. And Toru too, but it's like with Toru, I don't know, just sometimes it feels like, honestly, that Yuki dominates a lot of the narrative throughout the anime, which does make sense for his growth as a character, because we see that with his envy with Kyo in particular, that he envies that Kyo can just be himself and really just connect with people outside of the Soma family, whereas Kyo wants to be part of the Soma family. So with their envy of each other, it's really rooted in deep down admiration. And so that's why a character like Shigure, with how complex he is too, with his manipulation of Akito and how he just seems so carefree and just doesn't give a shit really with the curse, and he knows somehow it's going to be broken. He doesn't really give a shit. It's just really weird. And how Hatori always like sees through his fucking bullshit. So many reasons why I love Hatori, but like that in particular. But with Kyo and Yuki, how secretly deep down they both really admire each other, but then that admiration turned into jealousy, and that's why they are just natural rivals, in particular Kyo. And just though when Shigure knows just exactly what to say and just cuts through the bullshit too and just says, oh, you feel, it's like, or do you feel like you're obligated to hate him? Just certain things where he just knows the real truth. So that is interesting too. But then you have, say, Aya, who admires Hatsuri, and with him, it's just, he just admires him so much that he always wants to be around him. He looks up to him so much. So he's very much different to Yuki, who can't understand his brother. And Aya has that guilt of shunning Yuki when they were younger, because all of them struggling with the curse. And, you know, oh, I didn't even bother mentioning, if you know the anime, I don't need to go through which animals everyone, it doesn't matter, you know. So Hatori is just so amazing because he's more or less the most common sense. Again, when he just cuts through Shigure's BS, I love all that. So that dynamic is fantastic. And, you know, the whole dynamic with the three of them, Hatori, Aya, and Shigure. And Momiji, though, is just so amazing. And it's just so heartbreaking because with his growth as a character, how he starts out this fun, happy-go-lucky kid, really. And with his German, he's so adorable. Props to the voice actress for Momiji in the new anime, too. She did such a great job. But I mean, they all did too, obviously, like even for the friends, Arisa and Hana, they're really great too. Oh, let's talk about them really quick before I talk about Momiji. Arisa, her whole growth with Karino, and then Karino feeling guilty because he feels indebted to Akito. And then Akito too, how she's just kind of this childish, and like the way she, you know, reacts to everything. It's just terrible with her abuse, again, because of fearing of being left behind. But with Arisa, how she falls in love with Karino, so that's really sweet. And also how she had looked up to Kyoko her whole life. So then when she sees Kyoko, when she's just a doting mother and she can't believe that, so then like she has to realize that it's not always about that, because she's of course a reformed person who was first like in a biker gang and now she's just had that wild life, as in Kyoko, but then also Arisa too, so then she grows out of that as well. And Hana is just such a great character because she sees through everything. Hana could have been, to me, like a great character to have her own story, even if they had done a spin-off with that. I know there is is Fruits Basket Another, which tells a whole different story. That was a whole sequel series that Natsuki Takaya wrote and illustrated. But anyway, I just love Hana, though, because she's just so interesting with her waves and how she really sees Kyo in particular, how he has this true darkness surrounding him. So it's just so fascinating. But to go back to Momiji, his arc, and again, the whole thing with when he confides in Toru that though his mother rejected him and then his mother chose to erase her memories, that he always wants to keep his memories close to him, even the painful ones, and that she agrees with that. It's just so heart-wrenching and beautiful. He's just so pure of heart and such an incredible character. His relationship then with his younger sister, who just takes an interest in him, and listening to him play the violin, it's beautiful with Momo, so adorable. And then when he goes through that physical transformation, where then all of a sudden he's taller and everything, and deeper voice, and it's just so cute. Oh my goodness, he's still just so adorable though. But that's a great moment because in general with animation, whenever a character goes through a physical change, there has to be an emotional reason behind it, because a big thing with animation is that then it costs money to do a whole new character model and everything. So when you see a physical change, there has to be a reason within the story for it. And in this case with Momiji, it's his growth, since he is the first one outside of Kunino, which when we meet him, of course, he's already broken of the curse. It's so strange with the curse. What exactly causes them to be free of the curse? I guess it just makes sense that it's not exactly clear, but it's just really interesting. So then when he becomes free of the curse, and we see him grown now, and then when he kind of tests Kyo, saying how, he just says, oh, I'm free of the curse, and he's like, no, well, she really would want you to be, as in Toru. And then he says how, someone could steal her away, like me. And it's just, so it's like, you wouldn't want that, would you? And it's just so tragic because poor Momiji, that he develops feelings for Toru as well. But then when he has that nice moment when he just sees his mom and she just has pleasantries because, again, she doesn't know who he is. It's so devastating. But then when he just smiles and it's just like a new beginning for him. So his arc kind of can be summed up as letting go of the women in his life, his mother and Toru and his younger sister. So as heartbreaking as that is, it's really just shows so much his true strength, his inner strength. Same with Hatori, letting go of the love of his life, Kana, when he had to erase her memory of him, and he's just carrying on that love for her. But then when he falls for their teacher, and it's just so adorable too when then she's crying hysterically and he says, thank you for crying for me, with abandon, like a child, really crying. That's a really sweet thing as well. So really all of them kind of moving on from their emotional scars. Similarly with Yuki too, how it's always so reflected inward of him, that he doesn't feel worthy, that he's selfish, but then when he comes to really develop feelings for Machi is voiced by Caitlin Glass, who is the ADR director on the new version of the anime. The original one, it was Justin Cook who voices Haru. But the whole thing with Machi and how she hates, to talk about her for a moment, how she hates perfection. We see what terrible parents she had, unfortunately. And a great moment to me, the thing with the leaf is cute. Their little courtship is very sweet. And again, that's all outside of the Soma family. So that's seeing Yuki grow outside of the Soma family. They don't really interact with anyone else. It's just Yuki. It's like a whole side story with Yuki and with the student council. But with him and Machi, a moment I really love in particular is when they place chalk in front of her, the perfectly lined chalk. And then as he's reading their announcements and everything, he just breaks a piece of the chalk for her to help her out. It's okay. I'm here for you to help you get over this of hating perfection, And I thought to myself, oh, that's a good move. Good on you, Yuki. That was good, but too funny. Oh my goodness. But again, the main thing I cared about always was Toru and Kyo when they're going to end up together. Kyo realizing his love for her at the beach, that whole sequence. I remember reading that as a teenager and being like, oh, I can't wait to hear Kyo say these words or whatever. So good God, oh my goodness. But it really is sweet because then he protects Toru by saying, since he realizes it, and then when he's talking to Akito, how he says, no, I don't love her, of course not, because protecting her in that sense. And it's so heartbreaking to think that if you were watching this for the first time, you would think that it's heading towards this tragic end where Kyo is going to be locked up after high school. That's the whole thing, his bet with Akito, that she bets him that if he defeats Yuki, he'll be free to be accepted with the Somas, but if not, she's going to lock him up. Same thing that happened with Kazuma's grandfather the previous year of the cat before him. So knowing that, it's like thinking he just has this limited time left with Toru and he just wants to spend as much time with her as he can. And God, it's devastating. But he really does, he mellows out a lot and he grows a lot and becomes this person that truly always is in tune with Toru, always there to help her in terms of like being an emotional anchor for her. And honestly, one of my favorite things with that in particular, I love how with Kyo, anytime he upsets Toru unintentionally, how he gets so flustered and just is so immediately apologetic. It's just so fucking cute. Oh my God. He's just always like, oh no, I didn't mean it. Like whatever. Like it's just because poor Toru is prone to just getting upset, unfortunately, so easily. But anything where he just is immediately regretful, it's just so cute. For instance, that scene that was just so beautiful, in particular the scene when she gets upset because she's just wondering like hypothetically about the curse, and he's just saying how, oh, I don't care about that kind of stuff with hypotheticals, there's no point in any of that. And then she starts just getting upset because it's really because she's thinking of him, and then he's like, what's wrong, are you crying? And then afterwards he just holds out the paper flower to her. Oh my God, that's just so devastating but also so adorable.
Hey, Kyo. Well, I was wondering, what would you think if there was somebody in the Zodiac who was different? Whose curse had broken?
Broken? What do you mean? I have no idea. Anyway, I don't like what-ifs about that kind of stuff. Hey, what's wrong? Why do you look all depressed now?
That was so thoughtless of me. I'm really sorry.
No, wait, don't apologize. I'm not mad or anything, I swear.
What now?
I said that wrong.
What should I do?
Better. Look, I'm sorry.
I don't want to upset him.
Screw things up.
But if I look up, I'm afraid I'll cry.
And something I forgot about, like the head bonk things that he does once in a while. It first starts with the episode early on when Kagura is first introduced and he just bonks her head, Toru, and then she's like, why'd you do that? He's like, I don't know, just because, like, you know, it's just like very cute, kind of like a schoolyard thing, like pulling the pigtails a little bit, kind of like that. But it just becomes this like moment, like this sweet thing of him being like, I'm here for you, like, you know, I love you, you idiot, kind of like that. I don't know, you can interpret it all these different ways. But and then it's so heartbreaking because he feels unworthy of love in general and unworthy of loving her, and that feeling, that guilt, because then we learn that he harbors all this guilt because he feels he's responsible for Kyoko's death. That whole monologue absolutely broke me, where he confesses everything and then he says how your mother said to me, I won't forgive you. But then we later learn, of course, that there was the promise that she said, if you like break your promise about being there for Toru, I won't forgive you. Not that like he thinks it was her saying, I won't forgive you for this, like for not saving me. So, my God, the fact that he harbors that guilt, it's so intense and terrible. And so then it's like he punishes himself, feeling that he can't love Toru, he doesn't deserve that. And then with Toru saying, well, I can't believe she would have said that. That's not, like, that has to be my only choice. I don't accept that, you know? So, good for Toru, too. And that whole part with Toru when she's going to befriend Akito, when Akito has snapped, when she wants to start over with Akito, and again, showing the true strength of Toru, how despite being rejected by Kyo, thinking all of that, and then she still has the strength to turn to Akito despite all of the harm Akito has caused to Toru, to everyone in the Soma family, really, and horrible, oh my God. But when she has the strength to say, then let's start over. I'm Toru Honda. What's your name? And then when the ground caves in beneath her, oh my God, that whole thing, it's just so devastating. So much emotional angst in particular in these last few episodes leading up to the wonderful ending. But my God. So the part with Kyo, and then he, you know, when Yuki gets there first, and then Kyo is there crying, and she still has the strength when she sees him to just reach out and be like, it's okay, it's going to be okay. And then like he's crying and he's just like, no, I didn't want this. And when he leans down and kisses her, that just totally broke me. I was not expecting the reaction I had, where I just kind of, something inside me broke and I just folded over and just was full on weeping. I can't describe, I just was like, oh my god, it was too intense. That's the dangers of loving this anime, you know, the emotional turmoil that we go through. My god. And so going into these final few episodes of the series, I knew it was going to be so emotional, to say the least. I just finished watching the series now as I'm recording this, and oh my god, I cried so much through these last few episodes. It was just unbelievable because, my god, the catharsis ultimately, and knowing that even with all of the pain and anguish and all of the struggles, all of the hardships these characters went through throughout the series, they all end up better by the end, in a much better place. And it's absolutely so beautiful when one by one they are broken free of the curse and how they react to it, tears streaming down their faces, and Haru saying, oh, it feels lonelier than I thought it would feel. And it's as if it's this rebirth. And so I cried so much because just loving these characters so much, they feel in a way a part of me, having loved them all these years from when I first watched the series to now. So it's just so utterly beautiful. And I can't tell you how much I absolutely love the scene between Kyo and Yuki when they really fight, and then with Shigure just downstairs saying, oh, my poor house being destroyed, and then Haru just sitting there, oh, can I order a pizza? I love that. Just little bits of humor. But then with the two of them, this full-on explosive fight, Kyo and Yuki, that after all of these years of hatred between them, that they finally confess to each other that they admire each other. And Kyo saying, I've always wished I could be you. And then Yuki saying, damn you, go to hell, because I wanted to say that first. And it's so weird because it's like they're yelling at each other, but they love each other in their own unique way. They truly admire each other. So to have that finally come out then, it's just so, again, so cathartic as a viewer. And just with these characters all this time, I guess to me it's all the more meaningful because it's something I always wanted to see from the original, so now all these years later, it's like, finally, fucking finally! So I can't tell you how, like, the range of emotions I went through, and now just talking about it, oh my god, it's just incredible how deeply you feel for these characters, and that makes it all the more beautiful when the curse is broken, and we find out the true story of the curse that Toru narrates with God and how the cat came to visit God, and then the symbolism of eternity, and then when the cat passes, and then one by one, and then when God passes, and then saying that there will be another banquet. So again, when they are free of the curse, and the last one being Yuki, how it's a symbolism of rebirth. And then with the final banquet where Akito reveals her true self as a woman, and then they're shocked, and then she's saying, this is the true me, this is a symbol of change, and it's a new chapter in my life, it's a new beginning for all of us. So it's truly so utterly beautiful. And forget it, the scene when Kyo and Toru finally confess their feelings for each other, I wept, I just full-on wept, and I cheered. I was like, yes, finally. I just let myself, in a way, kind of be a kid again, be a 13-year-old again. I was just so excited. Let myself just be a full-on fangirl. It's just a lot of fun, I have to say, of allowing yourself to just freely enjoy something and not be like, I'm too old for that. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, just enjoy it and let yourself. So just like, that's just a little side note. I just wanted to say that because, like, it's amazing that after all these years, I still genuinely love these characters so much. And it's incredible. So, of course, I gotta play the beautiful clip of when they finally confess their feelings because it was just perfect.
Hey, I was completely selfish, wasn't I? I just confessed all my own sins, said everything I wanted to say, and trampled all over your feelings. And then I ran. Even though I know that sometimes in this world, you don't get the chance to see someone again, to say you're sorry. I know that. But if I'm just going to repeat history, well then, How's that any different than knowing nothing at all?
Kyo.
I'm sorry for making you cry. I'm sorry I hurt you so much. This is the last time. I'm fine with that. I don't need another after this. But will you please give me one last chance? What I want is to be with you. If I'm going to keep living, I want to do it with you. You and nobody else. Because I love you.
So, does that mean I'll stay by your side? That we'll be together? You're saying I can be with you, stay close to you and hold your hand?
You know, you already are.
Even if it's been said dozens, hundreds, thousands of times, even if the words are a worn-out cliche, they're still true. This really is like a dream.
It was just so touching and absolutely beautiful and sincere and heartwarming, and I could go on because after all these years, as a fan of this series, but also between the characters, seeing the growth with them, with Kyo in particular, this maturity, and realizing what he wants is Toru, because he has that moment of doubt of before he sees her when he says, do I still love her? And then when he sees her after she's released from the hospital, he says, no, none of that matters. I love her. I just love her. And then it's so funny when she just goes sprinting and then like she just bolts out of there because poor Toru, thinking he doesn't love her, thinking he rejected her. But then he's like, you shouldn't be running out of after you just got out of the damn hospital. I don't know, every time he yells, it gets me. It's too funny. In that case, being concerned, but But so then afterwards, when going back to that beautiful scene when he kisses her and then he says, that wasn't our first time, you're gonna have to remember on your own. Oh my God. And then he says, can I hold you? And it's just so beautiful.
You think I could hold you? I know as soon as I do, I'll transform. And sometimes it'll be hard. Being with me will mean you'll have to deal with this weird body of mine.
Kyo, haven't you figured it out yet? It's okay. Because I love you no matter what. I love you. I swear. And that love, it's invincible.
Oh. Huh. Well then, maybe I'm invincible too. I mean, there's nothing to be afraid of now. Not if you're with me.
Beautiful. So then when he hugs her, and then the realization that he's free, and it's so satisfying, and it's so beautiful. And then when he rips off his beads, his bracelet, and she picks them up one by one, oh my God, and she's crying, and oh my God. And then with Yuki being the last one, and how it's scary for him in a way, and he's saying, I was with someone my whole life, and now that person is gone and will never come back. And it's so sweet with Machi too, and then she says, I would like to call you by your first name, and he says, go ahead. And then she says, Yuki. Like, it's so sweet. He's like, please, again, Yuki. He's like, yes, you can call me that as much as you want. And he kisses her, and it's so cute because as they're having this heart-to-heart, everyone around just outside is staring intently as if they're witnessing something so incredible they can't look away. So it's beautiful. So with all of these lovely, beautiful love stories, finally, like with everyone coming together with Kyo and Toru, finally, like, oh my God, finally. That scene was just perfect. I loved it so much. And also with Aya and Mine, it's so sweet. And Aya, of course, being grander than life. Oh God, I love Aya so much. It's so sweet. And also with Shigure and Akito. So Akito too, with being dressing like a woman now and just being her true self. It's lovely. And all of them, Hatori and, each of these new couples, the start for all of them. So it's so sweet. And also then when we find out the truth about Kyoko's final words, that whole thing destroyed me too. How she wasn't saying, I won't forgive you to Kyo, which was what he had thought. It was that if you break your promise of protecting her, then I won't forgive you. So it's just, oh God, it's beautiful. I'm just gushing because I just finished watching it now, so I'm still kind of processing it all, but even though I already knew it basically from the manga, knowing everything, but it's just so lovely, so emotional, like, oh my God, because you feel so much for these characters. This true beauty with all this pain they went through makes it all the more rewarding that now they are free. They are free to start new lives for themselves. So then Kyo, when he says he wants to move away, live at the dojo, and will she come with him? And then she says yes. He's like, are you sure? And then he's so adorable and he gets all nervous like that. And she's like, Kyo, I can be stubborn too. I'm setting my foot down. I like how in this small glimpse of their relationship now with the two of them as a couple in just these last couple of episodes, that he's so much gentler. We've seen the gentle side of him throughout the series with Todo in particular, and then with her being firmer, more confident.
That's me, standing my ground. I am going with you. Yes, leaving everyone here will make me sad. It will be hard. But Kyo, if I were apart from you, that would be much harder. I belong with you, by your side. I don't want to be separated, and I don't want to wait. Please take me with you.
Thank you.
They are going to grow together, that only he can make her happy in that way. That's why I love that Yuki's the one that says that to him, that you idiot, like you running away isn't the answer, that don't you realize that she only smiles like that when she's with you. So like him screaming that to Kyo, finally getting through to him, it's beautiful. And then the final moments with Yuki and Todo, when Yuki thanks Todo and says that whole lovely speech about how we'll be sad, but every once in a while we'll think of you if you're okay, if you're happy, and thank you. You changed my life for the better. So again, how all of them have loved Todo in their own beautiful, unique way. It's so beautiful. And God, just that symbolism too of the cords breaking, that bond breaking, and now true freedom, true being on their own, having a new life they can live as normal human beings, Yuki going off to college, all these lovely things, Shigure and Akito starting life together, and Haru and Rin, all of them, it's so sweet. And even Momiji saying that, oh, someday I'll find a sweetheart, and like, all that stuff. I love also how, because throughout the series too, how Hana and Uo, how they're kind of like parents to Todo in a way. So then when they just tag along on Kyo and Todo's first official date to the zoo, and they're teasing him and giving him hell because they, it's like they love him too. It's like he's part of their family now. When they say, like you have to protect her, it's because Todo is just such this precious person, and she truly is a remarkable human being. So in a way, these characters feel so real to me, and I'm so happy with this series, and after all these years, finally seeing this lovely conclusion. So I can't say enough how much I love this series, the beauty of it, the lessons I've learned from it, in particular the whole thing, also going back to the thing with the plum on the back about realizing your own strength and your own things that people admire about you, realizing that for yourself. So the acceptance and self-love and forgiveness, and that they all get this chance to start over. Thankfully, it has this beautiful happy ending, and that through all of this pain and strife, they come out stronger in the end. And so then when Todo gets upset, and then Kyo's like, oh, you get embarrassed over the weirdest of things when her stomach grumbles. But then when she's reminiscing about how when he crashed through the ceiling, it's like, yeah, not one of my better days, like not one of my finest moments. And then when he hugs, it's just so beautiful, like finally get to see them hug freely, like, oh my God, amazing. And when he says that they love you more than you realize, and again, it's echoed when Yuki tells her all of those things, that we're always going to be thinking of you. So how knowing this person, this amazing person, Toru Honda, how they all became who they were meant to be through her, through sheer acceptance and love from her in reflecting how she saw them, how they were then able to grow. So, oh my god, I just love this series so much. I love these characters so much. They hold such a special place in my heart. Evidently, there is a new spin-off series in the works that's going to focus on Kyoko and Katsuya, so that's interesting. That should be really good. And again, like with Kyo, oh my god, it just made me so happy with him telling Kazuma and seeing him free with the bracelet, just his bare wrist. It's so beautiful. And then the little thing at the end with just them having grown old, walking hand in hand, Kyo and Toru, and then their little granddaughter asking where they were. It's so cute, and that's also in the manga. So what a special series, and it shaped me all those years ago. And so now I have just a deeper appreciation for it. And one more thing I wanted to mention about the curse, with Kyo in particular, is I love how the series comes full circle, where he is the first person we see transform, and he's also the last person we see transform. Although with the last time, it's when Kyo and Toru hug through that sheet, which again is such another beautiful emotional moment that I wanted to see come to life from the manga all these years later. So, oh my god, the amount of touching emotional moments in this series, my goodness. So that's really beautiful to me. And also the fact that when they are free of the curse, and again with Kyo in particular, when they are at the zoo, and then they go see the cats, and another part of the curse was that so he was possessed by the spirit of the cats, and there would be cats around him. And then this time now, since he's just a normal human, then the cat just kind of looks at him and then just ignores him. So that's an interesting thing as well, because now he's totally free. So again, it's just a truly beautiful, amazing thing. Love Kyo Soma, love Toru Honda, love the Somas. They mean so much to me. They really do. And this series is just so truly beautiful. So thank you, Toru. Thank you to the Somas. Such a transformative series. Makes you reflect on yourself as a person and how you can change. And even with Toru and Akito, again, accepting her when Akito says, "You're so pure and pretty," and then Toru being firm again, saying, "No, don't put me in a box. That you're also pure and pretty." So that's just so sweet. That again, she sees absolute greatness and beauty in everyone, and that they become true friends then when they cry together and hug Akito and Toru. So I love that too. And how in knowing Toru, they all were able to grow and become better versions of themselves, because that true unconditional love. And it's just so beautiful with her and Kyo, and oh my god, incredible. So thank you, Fruits Basket. Thank you. And with that is going to conclude this week's episode of Storytelling Saga. Be sure to visit storytellingsaga.com, and as always, feel free to send me any questions, comments, or writing prompts by sending me an email at storytellingsaga@gmail.com. Next episode, I will be discussing the dark comedy Kevin Can Fuck Himself. Until then, thank you for listening, and remember, write what you love.